Have you ever felt it? That quiet hum of chaos that begins the moment you open your eyes. It's not a sound you can hear with your ears, but one that reverberates deep within the chambers of your mind. Imagine a student, hunched over her desk in the pre-dawn stillness. The weight of an impending exam presses down on her, not as knowledge to be recalled, but as 1,000 future failures she has already scripted in her head. Every page she turns is a reminder of what she doesn't know. Her heart races, not from the coffee, but from the tyranny of what if. Picture a professional, sitting in the sterile quiet of a boardroom. A colleague's passive-aggressive comment hangs in the air, a toxic vapor. He feels the flush of anger creep up his neck, the primal urge to defend, to retaliate. His mind is no longer in the meeting, it is on a battlefield of pride and indignation, and he is losing, because he has surrendered his inner peace to the carelessness of another's words. Think of a parent, navigating the beautiful, relentless storm of a young family. A spilled glass of milk, a tantrum, the endless list of chores. Each small event feels like a wave, and with every wave, he feels himself being pulled further from the shore of his own composure, drifting into a sea of exhaustion and reactivity. These are not the grand tragedies of life. They are the small, daily skirmishes that take place within the private theater of our minds. And yet, it is in these moments that we lose the war for our own tranquility. We live in an age of unprecedented noise, an external world that screams for our attention, our energy, our reaction. And in the face of this relentless barrage, our minds often feel less like a sanctuary and more like a city under siege. We are rattled by trivialities, hijacked by our emotions, and haunted by anxieties about a future that has not yet arrived. We feel powerless, as if we are merely passengers in a vessel tossed about by the unpredictable storms of life. But what if I told you that this feeling of powerlessness is an illusion? What if I told you that calm is not a gift granted by circumstance, but a skill forged by discipline? What if I told you that within you lies the capacity to build a fortress so resilient that no external chaos, no provocation, no uncertainty could ever breach its walls? This journey we are about to embark upon is a guide to building that citadel. It is not a collection of hollow affirmations or quick fixes. It is a deep dive into the practical, actionable wisdom of Stoicism, a training manual for the modern soul seeking to find its anchor in a turbulent world. We will not learn to ignore our problems, but to face them with a new kind of strength. We will learn to transform anger into understanding, fear into preparation, and anxiety into action. If you have ever felt that your own mind is your greatest adversary, if you have ever yearned to take back control from your fleeting emotions and external circumstances, then you are in the right place. This is your invitation to stop being a slave to the storm and to start becoming its master. Prepare to go deeper than you ever have before. The work is hard, but the reward is nothing less than freedom itself. Are you ready to begin? Section 1, The Inner Kingdom. Who holds the scepter, you or your impulses? Let us begin with the most fundamental question of our existence, a question that, once answered, illuminates the path to all inner freedom. Look inside your own mind, that bustling, chaotic, and brilliant inner world. Who is in charge here? Who sits on the throne of your consciousness? Is it you, the calm, rational, thinking self? Or is the throne occupied by a series of impulsive usurpers, a flash of anger, a pang of fear, a wave of desire, a whisper of doubt? Most of us live our lives in a state of quiet internal anarchy. We believe we are in control, yet our peace is dictated by the morning traffic. Our self-worth is swayed by a stray comment from a coworker. Our joy is contingent upon whether our plans unfold exactly as we wish. We are, in effect, puppet monarchs in our own mental kingdom, our strings pulled by the unpredictable hands of external events and internal impulses. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, a man who was born a slave and rose to become one of the most respected teachers in the Roman Empire, built his entire philosophy upon a single, revolutionary idea. He called it the prohairesis, a Greek term that is often translated as our moral purpose, our volition, or our faculty of choice. This, Epictetus argued, is the one and only thing in the entire universe that is truly and completely within our power. Everything else, our bodies, our reputations, our wealth, the actions of others, the unfolding of fate, is external to us and ultimately, not up to us. He taught that our minds are constantly bombarded by what he called phantasiae, or impressions. An impression is the raw, unevaluated data that flows in through our senses. The car that cuts you off in traffic is an impression. The critical email from your boss is an impression. The diagnosis from your doctor is an impression. These things happen. They are neutral. They are simply facts of the world. The suffering, the anger, the anxiety, none of it comes from the impression itself. It comes from the next step, a step so quick we often don't even realize we are taking it. It comes from the judgment we attach to the impression. We don't just see a car cutting us off, we assent to the judgment, that person disrespected me, and that is an intolerable offense. We don't just read the email, we assent to the judgment, my boss thinks I'm incompetent, and my career is in jeopardy. This is the moment where we abdicate our throne. We hand over the royal scepter of our inner peace to a traffic incident, to an email, to a fleeting thought. The Stoic, however, trains themselves to create a pause in this process. They practice what is known as the discipline of assent. When an impression arrives, the Stoic does not react immediately. They step back, hold the impression at arm's length, and examine it coolly, as if it were an object of study. They ask, impression, what are you in reality? Are you the thing itself, or are you the story I am telling myself about the thing? They choose, with deliberate, conscious effort, not to assent to the irrational and destructive judgments that our untamed minds so readily supply. This is the very essence of taking control. It is the act of a true sovereign, calmly discerning what is true and what is mere opinion, what deserves a response and what is simply noise to be ignored. Consider the historical figure of Cato the Younger, a Roman statesman and a paragon of Stoic virtue. Cato lived during the turbulent fall of the Roman Republic, a time of civil war, corruption, and political intrigue. His contemporaries, including the mighty Julius Caesar, were men driven by ambition, passion, and ego. They reacted to slights with fury and to setbacks with despair. Cato, in contrast, was renowned for his almost unnerving composure. He was insulted in the Senate, his political plans were thwarted, his life was constantly under threat. Yet, he remained unshakable. His enemies could not provoke him. Misfortune could not break him. Why? Because he had fortified his inner citadel. He understood that while Caesar could conquer Gaul, he could not conquer Cato's mind. No one could force him to assent to fear, to anger, or to despair. The scepter of his inner kingdom was held firmly in his own hand. You do not need to be a Roman statesman to practice this. You can begin today, with a simple yet profoundly transformative exercise. Let's call it the Impression Journal. Find a notebook. At the end of each day, take 10 minutes to reflect. Divide a page into 3 columns. In the first column, the trigger, write down an event from your day that caused you emotional distress. Be specific. Example, my partner didn't listen to me when I was talking about my stressful day. In the second column, the automatic judgment, write down the immediate, unedited thought or story that your mind attached to that event. Be brutally honest. Example, they don't care about me. My feelings are not important to them. Our relationship is weak. In the third column, the reasoned response, you will become the Stoic. Examine the automatic judgment. Is it truly a fact? Or is it a dramatic interpretation? What are other, more rational possibilities? Here, you will consciously choose a new, more virtuous judgment. Example, my partner may have been tired or distracted by their own worries. Their inattention in this single moment does not define the entirety of our relationship. The impression is that they were quiet, the judgment that they don't care is my addition. I will choose to respond with understanding and perhaps ask for a better time to talk, rather than with resentment. Performing this exercise day after day is like lifting weights for the soul. At first, it will feel difficult, artificial. You will catch the automatic judgments only in hindsight. But with consistent practice, that crucial pause between impression and judgment will begin to lengthen. You will start catching yourself in the moment, before you surrender your emotional scepter. You will feel anger begin to rise and you will be able to say, "Ah, there you are. An impression. But I will not assent to you." This is the first and most crucial step in building your inner citadel. It is the declaration of your sovereignty. You are the rightful ruler of your inner kingdom. Your thoughts, your emotions, your impulses, they are your subjects, not your masters. Learn to govern them with the calm, discerning wisdom of a Stoic, and you will have laid the foundation for an unshakable peace. Section 2, The Futility of Rage, Why Anger is a Fire that Burns the One Who Holds It. There is an emotion so potent, so seductive, that it can turn the wisest person into a fool in a single, blinding flash. It arrives promising power, a sense of justice, a release of pressure. But it is a treacherous advisor. It is a fire that, once lit, consumes not the object of its fury, but the very person who wields it. That emotion is anger. In our modern world, anger is often misunderstood. It is sometimes mistaken for strength, a sign that one is passionate and unwilling to be wronged. We see it glorified in movies, celebrated in politics, and unleashed daily in the anonymous battlegrounds of social media. But the Stoics saw anger for what it truly is, a form of madness. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher and advisor to the Emperor Nero, dedicated an entire treatise to this destructive passion. On Anger, he calls it a brief insanity, a desire to repay suffering. He uses a series of powerful analogies to expose its true nature. Anger, he says, is like a collapsing building that crushes everything beneath it, including itself. It is a weapon that, when thrown, often recoils to strike the thrower. It is a storm that wrecks the ship that carries it. Seneca's analysis was not merely philosophical, it was profoundly psychological. He understood that anger clouds the single most important faculty a human possesses, reason. From a modern scientific perspective, we know this to be true. When you become angry, your body is flooded with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. The amygdala, your brain's primitive threat detector, hijacks your executive functions. Your heart rate skyrockets, your muscles tense, and blood is diverted from your prefrontal cortex, the seat of rational thought, to your limbs, preparing you for a physical fight. In this state, you are physiologically incapable of thinking clearly, of seeing nuance, of feeling empathy. You are, for all intents and purposes, a different creature, one driven by instinct, not intellect. This is why actions taken in anger are almost universally followed by regret. The scathing email sent in a moment of fury, the relationship-ending words hurled in a heated argument, the door slammed, the bridge burned, these are the bitter fruits of surrendering our reason to this brief insanity. Let us consider a modern parable. Imagine two small business owners, both facing the same crisis. A key client, responsible for a significant portion of their revenue, has decided to terminate their contract due to a minor error. The first owner, let's call him Alex, receives the email and is immediately consumed by rage. How could they do this, he fumes. After all we've done for them. This is an insult. He immediately fires off an angry, defensive email, listing all the ways the client is being unfair and short-sighted. He vents to his employees, creating an atmosphere of panic and blame. His anger, which feels like a righteous defense of his company, has actually blinded him. He has severed any chance of repairing the relationship and demoralized his own team in the process. He has held the burning coal of anger, and it is his own hand that has been scorched. The second owner, Isabella, a quiet student of Stoic philosophy, receives the same email. She feels the initial sting of disappointment, the familiar heat of indignation beginning to rise in her chest. But she has trained for this moment. She stands up from her desk, takes a walk around the block, and focuses on her breath. She puts the discipline of assent into practice. The impression, the client has terminated the contract. The automatic judgment her mind offers, this is a disaster. They have betrayed us. My business is going to fail. She observes this judgment, acknowledges its presence, but refuses to assent to it. Instead, she chooses a reasoned response. She asks herself, what is within my control right now? Replying with anger is not. The client's decision is not. What is in her control is her response. After an hour, once her emotional storm has passed and the waters of her reason are calm again, she drafts a reply. It is not defensive. It is not accusatory. It is professional, understanding, and forward-thinking. She acknowledges the error, thanks them for their past business, and leaves the door open for future collaboration. She then gathers her team, not to panic, but to strategize. This is a setback, she says calmly, but it is also an opportunity. It reveals a weakness in our client diversity. Let's turn this into a catalyst for growth. Who has acted with true strength? Alex, who gave in to the seductive power of rage? Or Isabella, who mastered it? The answer is clear. Isabella's calm was not a sign of weakness, it was her ultimate strategic advantage. So, how do we cultivate this advantage in our own lives? How do we defuse the bomb of anger before it detonates? The Stoics provided a practical toolkit, an anger diffusion protocol that we can practice daily. Step 1. Recognize the physical harbingers. Anger is not just a thought, it is a physical event. Learn to recognize its early warning signs, the tightening in your chest, the clenching of your jaw, the heat rising to your face. When you feel these sensations, you know the storm is gathering. This awareness is your first line of defense. Step 2. Enforce a mandatory delay. Seneca advised his friends to never make a decision or say a word when angry. He suggested looking in a mirror to see the ugly and threatening distortion that anger creates on one's face. In our modern context, the most powerful tool is simply to create space. The 90-second rule, mentioned by neuroscientist Jill Bolte Taylor, is a powerful starting point. An emotion's biochemical lifespan is only about a minute and a half. If you can simply wait it out without feeding it with angry thoughts, the wave will crest and break on its own. Commit to a mandatory delay before you respond to any provocation, whether it's 5 deep breaths, a walk to get a glass of water, or a rule that you will not reply to a frustrating email for at least 1 hour. Step 3. Reframe the trigger. Once the initial heat has subsided, engage your rational mind. Actively challenge the story you are telling yourself. Is this person intentionally trying to harm you, or are they perhaps just thoughtless, ignorant, or struggling with their own issues? As Marcus Aurelius would remind himself, people do wrong because they don't know any better. Reframe the insult not as a personal attack, but as a display of someone else's ignorance or pain. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it frees you from the burden of taking it personally. Step 4. Choose a virtuous response. Your ultimate goal is not just to avoid anger, but to respond with virtue. What would be the courageous, just, or temperate thing to do? Often, the most powerful response is not a clever comeback, but a quiet demonstration of your own character. It could be patience. It could be a simple, calm statement of fact. It could even be compassion. Anger is a demanding tyrant. It promises you the satisfaction of revenge but pays you in the currency of regret and suffering. By learning to see it not as a source of power but as a profound weakness, you can begin the work of deposing it from the throne of your mind. You can choose to be the master of the fire, not its victim. And in that choice, you will find a deeper, more enduring strength. Section 3. The Fortress of Composure, calm as the ultimate strategic advantage. In a world that prizes speed, volume, and forceful reactions, there is a quiet, unassuming quality that is often mistaken for passivity, yet it is the bedrock of all true power. This quality is composure. It is the ability to remain centered, clear-headed, and deliberate while the world around you descends into chaos. For the Stoics, this was not a matter of temperament, it was a matter of strategy. Calm is not a weakness, it is the ultimate weapon. The Stoics sought a state they called ataraxia, which translates to a serene state of inner tranquility, free from disturbance. But this is not the blissed-out detachment of a hermit. It is the vigilant, active peace of a warrior. It is the clear-eyed calm of a ship's captain navigating a treacherous strait, who knows that panic is a far greater danger than the rocks or the waves. A mind consumed by agitation cannot perceive reality clearly. It overestimates threats, underestimates its own abilities, and makes foolish, short-sighted decisions. A calm mind, in contrast, is a finely tuned instrument. It sees things as they are, unclouded by the fog of emotion. It can assess situations accurately, anticipate future challenges, and act with precision and purpose. Think of it this way: your mind is a fortress, your inner citadel. When you are agitated, angry, or fearful, the gates of your fortress are thrown wide open. Any stray comment, any minor setback, any piece of bad news can storm in and wreak havoc, taking your inner peace captive. But when you cultivate composure, you are the vigilant guardian of those gates. You stand on the battlements, observing the chaos of the world outside, but you do not allow it to breach your walls. You maintain the sovereignty of your inner space. History provides us with countless examples of leaders whose greatest strength was their composure. Consider Abraham Lincoln during the American Civil War. He was besieged from all sides. His generals were failing, his cabinet was fractious and full of rivals, the press attacked him relentlessly, and the nation was tearing itself apart. The pressure was unimaginable. A lesser man would have crumbled, lashing out in anger, sinking into despair, or making rash decisions born of desperation. Lincoln, however, was a master of composure. He was known for his patience, his ability to listen to all sides, and his habit of diffusing tense situations with a folksy story or a self-deprecating joke. When his Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton, a man who had previously insulted Lincoln publicly, would fly into a rage, Lincoln would listen calmly and say, "Well, Stanton, you may be right." He refused to be drawn into another's emotional storm. He preserved his mental and emotional energy for the monumental tasks at hand, preserving the Union and ending slavery. His calm was not passivity, it was an act of immense discipline and strategic brilliance. It allowed him to steer the nation through its darkest hour. This fortress of composure is not something reserved for presidents and emperors. It is a structure that you can begin building within yourself today. One of the most powerful Stoic exercises for cultivating this state is what is often called the view from above. This is a practice of cognitive distancing, a guided meditation designed to shrink your problems by expanding your perspective. When you feel overwhelmed, trapped in the narrow, suffocating confines of your own worries, find a quiet place and try this. Close your eyes. Begin by visualizing yourself in the room where you are sitting. See your body, the chair, the details of the space around you. Now, let your perspective begin to float upward. See the entire building you are in, the roof, the surrounding street. Float higher still. See your neighborhood, a patchwork of houses and trees. See your entire city, a sprawling map of light and life. Continue to ascend. See your country, then your continent, a shape of land surrounded by the vast, blue ocean. Now, see the earth itself, a beautiful, swirling marble of blue and white, suspended in the silent, black expanse of space. See the moon circling it, a faithful companion. See the sun, a blazing star, holding your entire world in its gravitational embrace. Float further out, past the other planets of your solar system. See your sun become just one of countless stars in the Milky Way galaxy, a magnificent, swirling spiral of cosmic dust and light. And see your galaxy as just one of billions upon billions of other galaxies, each containing billions of stars, stretching out into the infinite, silent mystery of the cosmos. Now, from this vast, cosmic perspective, try to locate your problem. That frustrating meeting. That hurtful comment. That financial worry. From this vantage point, how large does it seem? How significant is it in the grand, sweeping tapestry of time and space? The purpose of this exercise is not to trivialize your problems or to suggest that they are not real. The purpose is to put them in their proper context. Most of our anxieties are the product of a narrowed, self-absorbed perspective. The view from above shatters that perspective. It reminds you of the immense scale of reality and the fleeting nature of your own life and troubles. It is almost impossible to maintain a state of intense anxiety when you are contemplating the silent dance of galaxies. When you return your awareness to your body, to the room, you bring a piece of that cosmic stillness back with you. Your problems are still there, but their emotional charge has been diminished. Your mind is calmer, clearer, and better equipped to deal with them. Practice this regularly. Make it your go-to technique whenever you feel the walls of your world closing in. Composure is a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. By cultivating the ability to step back, to expand your perspective, and to maintain your inner calm in the face of life's provocations, you are not just managing your stress. You are building an impregnable fortress within your soul. You are becoming a person of true power, not the loud, reactive power of the ego, but the quiet, unshakable power of a Stoic. Section 4. Embracing the unfair universe, the liberating power of a more fatty. Let us be honest with one another. Life is not fair. You can be the most virtuous, hard-working, and kind person in the world, and still face betrayal, loss, and injustice. You can dedicate your life to a cause, only to see it fail. You can pour your heart into a relationship, only to have it crumble. The universe does not operate according to our human sense of fairness. It is a force of nature, indifferent, chaotic, and unpredictable. Faced with this reality, the untrained mind has two typical responses. The first is resentment. It shakes its fist at the heavens and screams, "Why me? This shouldn't be happening." This is the path of the victim, a life spent mired in bitterness, perpetually at war with a reality it cannot change. The second response is despair. The mind gives up, concluding that life is meaningless and effort is futile. This is the path of nihilism, a slow surrender of the soul. The Stoics, however, proposed a third way. A path so radical, so powerful, that the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche would later call it the formula for human greatness. This path is amor fati, the love of one's fate. Amor fati is not a grim resignation to suffering. It is not simply tolerating what happens to you. It is the active, joyful, and unconditional acceptance of everything that life brings, the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the painful. It is the mindset that does not just say, "This is happening," but declares, "This is what I would have chosen." Why? Because the Stoic understands that every event, no matter how unwelcome it may seem, is an opportunity. It is raw material from which we can forge virtue. Pain is an opportunity to practice courage. Injustice is an opportunity to practice temperance and forgiveness. Chaos is an opportunity to practice wisdom. There is no more powerful example of this principle in action than the life of Viktor Frankl. A successful psychiatrist in Vienna, Frankl had his entire world destroyed by the rise of the Nazis. He was arrested and sent to the concentration camps, including Auschwitz. He lost everything, his career, his home, his life's work, and his entire family, including his pregnant wife. He was stripped of his name and given a number. He was subjected to starvation, torture, and the constant, imminent threat of death. If anyone had the right to curse fate, to complain about the absolute unfairness of the universe, it was Viktor Frankl. Yet, in the depths of this unimaginable hell, he made a discovery that would change the course of modern psychology. He realized that even when the Nazis had taken everything from him, there was one thing they could not take: his freedom to choose his attitude in any given set of circumstances. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." In the barracks, surrounded by death and despair, Frankl chose to find meaning. He imagined himself lecturing to students after the war about the psychology of the concentration camp. He offered his last crust of bread to a man who was starving even more than he was. He found beauty in a sunset over the barbed wire fences. He did not simply endure his fate, he embraced it. He loved it, because it was his. And by doing so, he transformed the most horrific of circumstances into a testament to the unconquerable power of the human spirit. Compared to Frankl's ordeal, our daily frustrations seem trivial. Yet, we so often resist them. Complaining is the most common form of this resistance. When we complain about the traffic, the weather, or our boss, we are essentially saying, reality should be different. The universe should bend to my will. This is a profoundly arrogant and futile position. It drains our energy and achieves nothing. Acceptance is the first step toward action. When you stop fighting reality, you can start working with it. This is the core message behind the popular modern Stoic phrase, "The obstacle is the way." The problem in front of you is not blocking your path, it is your path. You can begin to cultivate a more fatty with a practical journaling exercise. The next time you are faced with an unfair problem or a frustrating setback, take out a notebook and write at the top of the page, "This is an opportunity to." Then, force yourself to list at least 3 ways this seemingly negative event could be a hidden opportunity for growth. Problem: I was passed over for a promotion I deserved. This is an opportunity to demonstrate my professionalism and grace in the face of disappointment. This is an opportunity to reevaluate my career path and see if this company is truly where I want to grow. This is an opportunity to identify the skills I may be lacking and create a plan to acquire them, making myself an undeniable candidate next time. This exercise forces your mind to shift from a victim mindset to a creative, proactive one. It trains you to see the potential for virtue in every event. It is the practical application of a more fatty. Life will never be fair. It will be beautiful and brutal, joyous and heartbreaking. It will not give you what you want, but what it gives you is always what you need to grow. The Stoic does not ask for a lighter burden, but for broader shoulders. They do not pray for a smoother sea, but for a stronger ship. Embrace your fate. Love it. For in that acceptance, you will find a freedom and a strength that no misfortune can ever take away. Section 5, The Sovereignty of Choice, recognizing that losing control is a decision. Between the moment a spark is lit and the moment a forest fire rages, there is a space. Between a stimulus that provokes us and the response that defines us, there is a space. It may be infinitesimally small, a fraction of a second, but within that space lies our greatest power. It is the power to choose. Most people live their lives unaware that this space even exists. They are creatures of stimulus and response, living in a state of near-constant reaction. A driver cuts them off, and anger is the automatic reply. A project fails, and despair is the immediate consequence. A loved one criticizes them, and defensiveness is the knee-jerk reflex. They believe they lose control, as if control were a physical object that can be dropped or stolen. The Stoics teach us a more empowering and more demanding truth: you never lose control. You give it away. Losing control is not an event that happens to you, it is an act you commit. It is a decision, however unconscious, to surrender your reason and become a slave to your impulses. Viktor Frankl, in his profound book, Man's Search for Meaning, identified this truth in the most extreme of circumstances. He wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." This is perhaps the most eloquent summary of the Stoic doctrine of choice. You are not a puppet. You are a pilot. Imagine a pilot flying a plane through severe turbulence. The plane is shaking violently, alarms are blaring, passengers are screaming. The turbulence, the external stimulus, is completely outside the pilot's control. A reactive pilot would panic. They would grip the controls too tightly, overcorrect, and potentially send the plane into a fatal spiral. They would have lost control. A responsive pilot, however, has trained for this moment. They accept the reality of the turbulence. They do not fight it. Instead, They focus on what they can control, their breathing, their focus, and the small, precise adjustments to the aircraft's controls. They remain calm, deliberate, and purposeful. Their response, born from the space between the stimulus of turbulence and the action they take, is what ensures the safety of everyone on board. They have not lost control, they have exercised it in the face of chaos. We are all pilots of our own lives, and we encounter turbulence daily. A layoff from work is a form of turbulence. Let us imagine two people who receive the same news: their position has been eliminated. The first person, operating on reactive autopilot, immediately assents to the judgment: this is a catastrophe. I am a failure. My life is over. They spiral into a cycle of victimhood, blaming the company, the economy, their boss. They stop looking for new opportunities, neglect their health, and allow the single event to define their identity. They have chosen to crash the plane. The second person, who practices Stoic principles, feels the initial shock and fear. But in the space between that feeling and their response, they choose differently. They acknowledge the difficulty of the situation without catastrophizing it. They see it not as an endpoint, but as a forced opportunity to pivot. They tell themselves, the job is gone, that is a fact. But my skills, my experience, and my character remain. This is an opportunity to pursue the career I've always been curious about, or to start the business I've been dreaming of. They update their resume, reach out to their network, and dedicate their newfound free time to learning a new skill. They have chosen to fly the plane through the turbulence and land it in a new, perhaps even better, destination. The event was the same. The difference lay entirely in the choice of response. So how do we become the pilot rather than the passenger? How do we widen that all-important space between stimulus and response? We do it through conscious, daily practice. Start with the choice journal. This is a variation of the impression journal, focused specifically on moments of reactivity. At the end of your day, identify one moment where you felt you lost control or reacted in a way you later regretted. The trigger: what was the specific event or stimulus? My teenage son spoke to me disrespectfully. The reactive response: what was your automatic, unthinking reaction? I yelled at him, told him he was ungrateful, and grounded him for a month. The choice point: this is the crucial step. Go back and identify the tiny moment before you reacted. What did it feel like in your body? What was the automatic thought? Acknowledge that in that moment, you had a choice. 3 alternative responses. Now, write down at least 3 different, more deliberate responses you could have chosen in that space. I could have taken a deep breath, looked him in the eye, and said calmly, "We don't speak to each other that way in this house." When you are ready to speak respectfully, I am ready to listen. I could have chosen to say nothing at all in the moment, recognizing he was emotional, and addressed the issue with him later when we were both calm. I could have responded with a question to understand the root of his behavior, such as, "You sound very upset. Is something else going on?" This exercise is not about self-flagellation or dwelling on past mistakes. It is about retrospectively training your brain to recognize the choice points in your life. By repeatedly analyzing these moments, you begin to see them more clearly as they happen in real time. The space between stimulus and response begins to feel less like a fleeting instant and more like a deliberative pause. You are the sovereign of your mind. No one can make you angry. No one can make you despair. They can only provide the stimulus. The response, the action, the emotion, the meaning, is always, always your choice. Recognizing this is not a burden, it is the ultimate liberation. It is the key that unlocks the door to growth, freedom, and an unshakable inner peace. Conclusion: the architect of your own peace. We have journeyed far together on this path of Stoic wisdom. We have walked with emperors and slaves, with philosophers and modern-day warriors of the spirit. We have explored the intricate architecture of the mind and uncovered the timeless tools required to transform it from a city under siege into an unbreachable inner citadel. We began by asserting our sovereignty, by taking back the scepter of our inner kingdom from the hands of our fleeting impulses and external circumstances. We learn to see anger not as strength, but as a self-inflicted wound, a brief insanity that clouds our reason and robs us of our power. We discovered that true composure is not weakness, but the ultimate strategic advantage, a fortress of the soul built stone by stone through disciplined practice. We confronted the fundamental unfairness of the universe, not with resentment, but with the liberating embrace of amor fati, the love of our fate, recognizing that every obstacle is an opportunity to practice virtue. We have been reminded, starkly and necessarily, that we are not what happens to us, we are what we choose to do in response. That losing control is never an inevitability, but always a choice. We have felt the profound connection between a turbulent mind and a neglected body, and learned to anchor ourselves in the physical reality of the present moment. We have learned to use our breath as a tool to regulate our nervous system, and our hands as instruments to clear our heads. We have practiced escaping the self-made prisons of past regrets and future anxieties by returning, again and again, to the only time that is truly ours, the here and now. The core lesson, the thread that weaves through every one of these principles, is this: calm is not a passive state you stumble into when life is good. It is an active, disciplined, and courageous practice of self-mastery. It is the daily, hourly choice to live with intention, to govern your mind with reason, and to meet the world not with reactivity, but with virtue. Let us return to the figures we met at the beginning of our journey. The student, once crushed by the weight of her exams, can now see her anxiety for what it is, a story of failure she is telling herself. She can apply the discipline of assent, focusing not on the uncontrollable outcome, but on the controllable process of her effort. Each page she studies becomes an act of virtue, an expression of her commitment, and the fear begins to recede. The professional, once provoked to anger by a colleague's barb, can now create a pause. He can see the comment not as an attack on his identity, but as an impression, a reflection of the other person's own insecurity. He can choose to respond not with anger, but with the quiet strength of composure, preserving his dignity and his focus. He transforms a moment of potential conflict into a demonstration of his own character. The parent, once drowning in the daily waves of family chaos, can now find his anchor. When a glass of milk spills, he can see it not as another frustration in an endless series, but simply as a glass of spilled milk. He can use it as a chance to practice patience, to connect with his child with a calm and loving response. He realizes that the quality of his presence is the greatest gift he can give to his family. They have not changed the world outside. The exam is still difficult, the colleague is still challenging, and the demands of parenting are still relentless. What they have changed is the world within. They have become the architects of their own peace. They have begun the work of building their inner citadel. This work is never finished. It is the practice of a lifetime. There will be days when the walls of your fortress are tested. There will be moments when you forget your training, when you surrender to an old, reactive habit. Do not despair. This, too, is part of the path. As Seneca reminds us, the journey to wisdom is lifelong. The important thing is to rise again, to forgive yourself, and to return to the practice. You hold within you the blueprints and the tools to build a sanctuary of unshakable calm. You have the power to choose your response, to govern your emotions, and to live in accordance with your own highest values, regardless of the storms that rage outside. You are the sovereign of your own mind. The journey does not end here. In fact, it is just beginning. Every day, every moment, is an opportunity to lay another stone in the walls of your inner citadel. If this journey has resonated with you, if you feel the call to continue this vital work, then I invite you to make a declaration. This is not just about watching a video, it is about committing to a way of life. Like this video, not as a simple click, but as an affirmation to yourself that you are choosing the path of calm, resilience, and inner strength. Leave a comment below and share which of these Stoic principles you will begin practicing today. Your declaration will not only solidify your own commitment but may inspire someone else in this community who is struggling. Let us know you are walking this path with us. Simply write, "I am building my citadel." And finally, subscribe to BAudio and turn on notifications. By doing so, you are not just joining a channel, you are joining a modern Stoa, a community of individuals dedicated to pursuing wisdom and living a life of purpose. There are many more lessons to explore, many more tools to add to your arsenal. The world will continue to be a noisy, chaotic, and challenging place. But it does not have to disturb your peace. You are the architect. You are the guardian. The stillness you seek is already within you, waiting to be cultivated. Go forth, and build your fortress.